Hi there, welcome back to another episode of the Barrow podcast. Just a reminder, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you happen to be listening, please give us a follow. And if you've got a minute, a rating and a review, at least a rating, helps the algorithm find us. We're competing with lots of other much more slick and professional and bigger production type podcasts. So that would be appreciated.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're back
Yep.
for another episode, and we're marching forward, continuing. Last week, obviously, we addressed an aspect of our lives, an aspect of culture as well. But we put that in place of a book episode because obviously I read the article and it was sort of focused around that. But we're back with another piece of your ongoing journey, life. We're heading towards nearing the end of Deb's story before we get to mine. So, I wanted to talk about divorce, but I wanted to talk about two kind of areas of divorce. I wanted to talk about your experience of machinations of divorce in the aftermath of your ex-husband leaving. But I also wanted to talk about divorce more generally. I think last week I kind of hinted in that article, or I made mention in that article that I felt like divorce, or I have felt like divorce doesn't get much of a look in anymore as having kind of the effect that it does, and that we have normalized it maybe a little bit too much. Now, I want to there's a little caveat there, a little disclaimer, I guess, that I want to say is that I believe divorce is necessary in some circumstances. There are reasons people get divorced. And as always, and I think I've said this a number of times on the show, I'm a big believer that most problems can be overcome. If people come together and actually talk and are willing to get together and navigate their way through things, then the effects are, they're muted. Minimized is a good word. So, but that is also not to say that there are no effects at all. And I feel like oftentimes people live between sort of this delusional, well, if we just kind of forget it and say it's not going to have an effect, then it won't. And then also a kind of over fixation on problematizing things. Whereas I'm just sort of in this halfway between where I'm like, no, things have an effect. You don't need to get defensive or affronted or take it too personally, but you need to address it.
Yeah, and you need to address it in the individual circumstances. So I think obviously we've moved from the fairy tale notion that marriage is forever and you're going to find the one.
Yep.
But that's been on the flip side. Oh well, it's divorce and that's what you do, and you marry 2-3 times and that's what you do.
I do wonder.
Yeah,
I do wonder if and these are real gray areas, right? Where it's like are people not trying hard enough to move through sticking points, or are they being more realistic and saying no, that sticking point is real?
Well, I think there's a bit of both actually in today's climate. It's, oh well, I could get divorced.
Yeah,
like we don't have to address it. That's a huge generalisation I'm making.
Absolutely, and I don't think it's but I think about that too. I'm like, are people, because you don't want to condemn somebody to a lifetime of like just working things out and living sort of in this like really badly compromised space. I mean, like we don't advocate for that.
I think historically that is why the no-fault divorce got celebrated so
Sure.
much.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
people were stuck
Yeah.
and it was difficult to get out of certain situations.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so it's sort of like a kind of a, but it's like most things in life, right? It's like how you come to it.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, you can go there in the same way that you can talk about technology. Like you can go, oh, it's ruined everything, it's terrible and whatever. Or you can be overly optimistic and adopt everything and say, no, we're on this path. But it's like, no, it's a negotiation, right?
And
like
individual stories are still individual stories.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess we'll stick with divorce in like more a general sense, because there was this article that I came across listening to Meghan Daum's podcast, the Unspeakeasy. It's been rebranded from the Unspeakable to the Unspeakeasy.
Okay.
And we touched on Meghan's amazing personal essay collection, which we've given another plug to, the Catastrophe Hour. Go check that out. Go check out her podcast. I'll put links in the notes for today's episode. But she had a guest on the show who had written an article on divorce for The Spectator, which is a publication, called How Divorce Never Ends. And her name is BRIDGET PHETASY, PHETASY. I don't think you say PHETASY. I think it's PHETASY.
I don't know.
I actually don't know. No, I'm sorry if I got that wrong. But BRIDGET PHETASY, that's how I'm saying it. How Divorce Never Ends was published on the 17th of June 2024.
And see, that's current.
For The Spectator.
Amazing.
Yeah. And a little bit like we touched on Gary Nunn's article in the last episode, I kind of, I come across these articles and I just want to sort of touch on them and spotlight them, because there's people out there talking about these things. And so, if you relate to anything that we say, you can go find these things. But look, when my parents, I'll just do a real brief version of this article. She writes that when my parents split up, I was 12 years old. They were officially divorced and in new relationships a year later. Now, that's not our experience.
See, I immediately reacted to that.
Oh, yeah, sure. There definitely feels, well, that you get to that in terms of personal insecurity, or you get to that in terms of, it seems flippant. I mean, like on the outside of it, it seems flippant, right?
Yes.
And let me get on this article, though.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Because, look, she says that, and this is How Divorce Never Ends, again, is the title. So she says, logistically, it would be a nightmare forever. So mum moved us to Minnesota, dad somewhere else. So there's this separation, and then the family kind of gets scattered. And then she says, over time, amid continuing dysfunction at home, my grades took a nosedive. I got lost in addiction, so did my husband. So she's now married and has a family of her own, blah, blah, blah. But she says this, and there's a bunch of stuff in here that I find really relatable. She's brushing over a lot of misery, although I won't brush over the fact that there was a lot of real capital T trauma. I'm an adult who has come to terms with things that happened in my youth that were out of my control, and I have a good relationship with my parents now, in spite of all the water under the bridge. Something, they did the best they could. I know people who had it much worse. My dad provided for us and didn't flake on the finances. Okay. But still, when I recall this history, a rage balls up to the surface. Grief for lost potential and what could have been. See, I think divorce, like many things, is a severance, and you will always be left with that ghost of what never took place.
Well, it is a scar.
If you have a
people
conscience,
won't talk about it or not. It is there's a scar left.
If you're a sensitive person, you can't help but imagine, like, well, what was my life, what would have my life looked like, or what was my life supposed to look like?
Yeah,
you know?
Sure. If I had a mother and father in place,
And then she writes this, that part of the anger is at how my parents became so obsessed with their new significant others that we became side notes. Now, that is a unique experience. I want to get into that about my experience of so-called step families later down the road, but you can
Well, reading that is interesting to me because it also blows back on me. My all or nothing. Oh, because I'm left and alone, I have to devote all my time to your upbringing, which brings about the tension at the bottom of our family life. So I immediately remove any kind of, for want of a better word, normal inclinations. Maybe because it's easier for me, because I don't want to go out there again. I've lost all trust. I've lost all confidence.
Yeah.
So I very conveniently say it's in the name of being there for you. And we know how that worked out. Being there for you was so intense and not real.
Yeah.
So that's my reaction to that. And I realise that would be a very real experience for many children in that scenario.
She goes on to write, and I find all these notes. It's a short article, and I feel a bit bad about kind of like reading too much of it. But like, she talks about the rage, and she says it's triggered constantly in adulthood when they try to be parents now after they abandoned their duty when it mattered.
Yes.
And that's the thing is like, how can you respect the parent? How can you trust the parent? How can you give a shit what they have to say now? Oh, you want to be a parent now. I had an experience of, and we'll get to it, but of your ex-husband, my biological father, coming out of the woodwork to say something to me. And my reaction was, you want to say something now?
Yes.
That you have you don't hold any position in my life. You vacated that position.
And may I say...
It doesn't stay intact.
Yeah, I think I probably said this before when we've been making references to this situation heading for divorce, is that notion that, oh, you're still dealing with the child's father or you're still dealing with the child's mother. You're not. You have absolutely lost confidence, faith, trust in the person who's just deserted you. There's a different emotion happening.
Yeah.
That's been talked about a lot. Oh, well, you just get together and talk about access.
And again, to clarify, we're talking about a case where somebody deserts, walks out, abandons. We're not talking about a case where it is a lead up to a divorce, where, or we're talking acrimonious, messy stuff.
Yes, sure.
As I've said, there's another side to all that. Sometimes it's necessary and there are good stories, but that's not ours. She says this, and again, that article title is How Divorce Never Ends. And I think that this is crucial, right? The rage is triggered again when my husband and I try to manage for our daughter to see 4 sets of grandparents who all want a piece of her. Some of them haven't spoken since they split up and refused to be in the same room together. I'm not sure what that means for future holidays or recitals or softball games, but I get furious at the idea that I'm still taking care of these boomers emotionally over 30 years later, and that they still haven't figured out how to put aside their differences and grievances, which their children have been asked to do for decades, for us. And that is the thing, is like, I've inherited all this ruin, and now you have an expectation that I be respectful, that I keep my mouth shut, that you hold the same position you did before you left when I was 3 years old, or whatever the case might be, that it's all somehow intact, and that because I'm mum or because I'm dad and because I'm with this person now, you should respect me in this position, and the respect should defer on to whoever I'm with. And it's this sort of finger wagging, and it's so disrespectful. It is so painful. But there is a logistical side. the movement between spaces geographically. There's a logistical side to these new relationships which join sometimes with other families, and those families grow. Again, there can be a nice side to this, but but not when you get to splitting finances and inheritance, and the complications just, they snowball. They just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And she says this, and this is the last bit I'll read. All of this is to say something you don't hear that often. Divorce will affect your kids for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
Well into adulthood. They will have splits, holidays and summers. They will have step-parents. Their kids will have step-grandparents. Whatever inheritance they would have been entitled to is often being divvied up with other spouses and their kids.
Yep.
More important than the money, however, is the attention they'll never get because their parents are dating or remarrying or whatever. They will only be with one parent half of the year. If they're lucky, we only saw my dad twice a year. They will have to choose who gets Christmas forever, or they will be bouncing around at holiday time with their kids just like the old days. And there's more to that article, and I'll put a link in, again, notes to today's episode to that. But it was a very short article, and it just resonated. And I'm like, these things that are done, they have echoes, and they go on resonating and echoing far into time.
Yeah, and I think there were certain assumptions made on a societal level that you could get it all right and the children would be resilient. But the human factor there is you won't get it all right. There's emotion involved. And so the child does
especially if you're
get
not
lost in that.
Especially if you're not addressing it and discussing it and talking it through. See, like, I have said on this show that, one of the great realizations and one of the horrific realizations was that I was never in the same room as my two parents after they got divorced. I never got to have a single conversation with my mother and father. Yeah. Not once in my life.
Yeah.
Now, the absolute ruin of that, the inability to talk, the inability to sort of not solve problems, but to address them, to acknowledge them and start a process of reconciliation. Well, that can't be done if somebody is absolutely refusing to believe that there's anything to apologize for, that there could be any effect, which is why the children are resilient myth is such a damaging one, because there is this presumption that everything's all right. It is not all right. Something has, whether you want to admit it or not, something has changed. And
something's completely broken.
And this needs to be acknowledged. And so, but then those ongoing echoes, and I mean step families, and I want to do a whole episode on step families when we get to my childhood in future. But again, that silence around what's happening, people are operating in their own minds. So you've got people with this set of assumptions that, I feel I like this person, so you like this person. I'm with this person now, so you just respect that and accept it. And only accepting it and respecting it is good. That's being a good person. Getting over it is a good person. And anything other than that is hateful, spiteful,
and there's something wrong
mean.
with you.
There's something wrong with you. You're harboring a grudge. I ended up walking away from my family, my secondary family, my father's side. I walked completely away from that, going to the point of undertaking name change, all sorts of things. Like, I got to a point where I thought, there is no place for me here. There's no place for me here that is respectful to me.
Yes.
There is only a place for me at the table so long I'm utterly compromised and I shut my mouth. And I was never, I have been nothing, by the way, I have been nothing but cordial and polite in the company of my father and his world and the life that he created after he left me, to not be given a single opportunity to just talk and to be told basically if I don't like things and I don't love who he loves and I don't whatever, that I'm being a hateful person.
It's your problem.
And yeah, well, obviously, I was just like, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to live this way where I'm basically being, well, I'm being gaslighted, you know. And I just thought, no, this is so disrespectful. And you know, that again, that's a unique set of circumstances. But the point is that, you know, that wound, that divorce wound, that it does go on resonating. Just the logistics of my parents don't live together, so now my time's divided, my attention's divided. It has such a grave effect, and that's not to guilt or shame anyone who is in the process of getting divorced or who has been divorced. I'm just saying that, Jesus Christ,
it has an effect.
Let's not normalize this to the point that we, for our own sake, like I think that there are people, children of divorce, who think they don't have a problem. And then at 25, 30, 35, there's these little worms swimming around in your stomach and you're going, why do I feel this?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like a cultural gaslighting. Like society has told you that you should be fine. And people they wake up sort of later in life and they're like, oh,
well, I'm not fine.
My interpersonal relationships are kind of dysfunctional. Why is that? Or I'm drinking. Why do I drink so much? You know? Yeah. And you shoulder it all alone. And that is such an immoral burden to give to children, that they should walk through the rest of their life thinking there's no problem here and gee, there must be something wrong with me. And
then you repress it.
Yeah, it's just you create a cycle, and and that's my outrage.
Yeah.
You know, I was going to say this, so let's get back to your story though. So your husband leaves, and we're sort of in that immediate aftermath of him leaving. So
yeah, and in that immediate aftermath, you're dealing with parenting, and you're dealing with the family court in that scenario. The divorce itself becomes a bookend at the end of all that. And I remember, like, divorce to me was so shocking because what it meant, and maybe because of my, you know, Catholic upbringing.
Sure.
And even though we were going through all this and it had happened, and I wasn't denying what had happened, I was not thinking it was going to turn around, but it still was a visceral sort of anger about divorce, you know, just the word. And, you know, it then becomes a bureaucratic paper exercise of signing documents and things. And I remember saying to my solicitor at the time, well, will I go to the hearing? And he had to sort of calm me down and said, Deborah, what purpose is that? You're going to sit in a courtroom and someone's going to stamp the papers and
so
you're still divorced.
You're thinking it's a bigger deal than it is.
Yes, because in the end it becomes, as I said, just that bureaucratic shuffling of papers. And then, okay, I've got I did have a marriage certificate, now I've got a divorce certificate. Wow.
The bureaucratic machinations really undermine the significance
Yes, and I think I'm trying to explain that sort of comes at the end of all, particularly if there's children involved. You trying to work out access and family court family court is stepping in there with mediation, and then the divorce is sort of another piece of the puzzle that really signifies the finality of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's such a kind of like a nasty. It is such a difficult process. I mean, like, there is such a great relief to getting to the end of that process for a lot of people too. Like,
Yeah, sure.
like, because any of that bureaucratic stuff puts you on tenterhooks. Like, you're always sort of languishing and waiting for another thing to be checked off.
That was a period of, I mean, I felt like, I think it was a time there I felt like I was going to the solicitors every week, just signing off on things. It just...
So I was going to ask,
yeah.
I was like, that period of your life sounds like it was arguably the most stressful period of your entire life.
Yeah, because you're dealing with bureaucracy and paperwork. At the same time, the emotions of it, you're not settling the emotions. You're settling arrangements and financial deals.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
But that doesn't help you settle the emotions.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely.
And probably that's why I pursued through the church
an annulment.
An annulment.
Yeah.
And that wasn't, to be honest, that wasn't a high priority until I had a really good conversation with my family priest. Because I said, look, Father, I don't need an annulment. I am not thinking of remarriage now or anytime soon.
Well, hang on. You kind of almost, on that, you sort of dismiss the idea of remarriage from the second you're divorced. Almost from the moment this begins to occur.
Because fundamentally I had that, call it a fairy tale belief or whatever, or a church belief that marriage was forever.
Yes.
It was,
Yes, but in the case that somebody's walked out on you and there are mitigating circumstances and what have you.
I am not entertaining. I think I'm just caught up in the moment, to be honest.
Yeah.
Dealing with what's happening with you, what's happening with access.
But certainly that seed is planted at that time.
Of course. And he was the one that said, well, I'm not proposing pursuing annulment for that reason. I'm proposing it as a way of almost therapy for you.
Yeah.
Which it turned out to be. It was quite a process. It made me angry. I'm not the person who left this marriage, and here I am looking back at my own behaviours and it was a good therapy exercise, because I then did look back at the marriage itself.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think. I mean, like, I know that we've got an upcoming reading on annulment.
Oh, okay.
No.
Yes.
No, you can talk about it.
Yeah.
But I'm just sort of thinking, like, I just don't know what to sort of question you on, I guess.
Well, I think what I'm trying to say is that the divorce part of it wasn't the end of it for me. It didn't satisfy me, so I needed to look for something else.
Right. Yeah, okay. Do you want to sort of talk about there was a period where, we might cover that on a reading episode. Actually, tomorrow's reading episode, I want to say that. Tomorrow's reading episode will probably get a little bit more detailed on that period directly after where you're sort of trying to round things up and, because your husband disappears. Like, he doesn't leave a phone number or a forwarding address and is basically just gone. And
and his words, I'll be in touch with you.
Yeah. So you're just
it's
left
sort of
in
no man's land.
In a limbo with a baby. I mean, you're just there with a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Well, okay. And then it's just on you. I think what I reflect on now in terms of our memoir and this period for you, I mean, like, you are just sort of, life really does happen to you in this period where you're waiting for your husband to be in contact with you and basically to be respectful to you. You're waiting for the system to be respectful to you. You're just left. You are absolutely abandoned in a situation that is so beyond stressful, with a 3-year-old crying and saying, "Where's Dada? Where's Dada? Where's Dada?"
Yeah.
Sure. And to last week's episode, there has never been any acknowledgement of this from my father. There has never been any acknowledgement of that trauma he inflicted on you and I in this period. And that, like, abandonment wound and the fact that I was, where's Dada, crying. I've never received an acknowledgement of that. I've never received a sorry. I've never received anything. And for you, just absolutely left.
Yeah. And then, I mean, I embarked on pursuing him basically for a conversation, not even a sorry. I think I was only ever pursuing the acknowledgement. Hey.
Same here. I always just wondered why there could not be an acknowledgement.
Yeah.
And what's so sad is that is how little we were asking for, despite the damage that had been done.
Yeah.
And to not be given even that has been, been a lifetime of frustration. It's been a lifetime of sadness.
Yeah, and it's sort of, I've forgotten my train of thought for a minute.
That's
there.
okay. We can take it.
No, I think I've said this before. Particularly in this situation, one person makes a decision a long time before he actually leaves. And I think, I always talk about the myth of the joint decision because, I mean, okay, some couples, it's not working for them. They can then talk about that, and it is a mutual decision. I'm not sure.
Can I say something I just thought of? Divorce is for some couples a tool, but divorce is for some individuals an escape.
Yes, and that was our situation. This person had made a decision quite a long time before he actually left. And then it was that the leaving, that period was manufactured around certain other events happening.
Yep.
And you're really just left with, hey, can we sit down and talk this through?
I find it, what you're talking about is so interesting that, like, in a relationship, in the case, what you're talking about is timelines. So if a person is preparing to leave and they've switched off from the relationship
Absolutely.
6 months ahead.
Yeah, of course.
So at the point that they leave, that's the end point for them, but it's the beginning for you.
It's the beginning for you. Yes.
And so...
And quite understandably, they're a long way ahead on their journey and they can't be bothered with that.
Yes.
But you're talking about a wife and a child.
Yes.
So you need to be a bit bothered.
You need to be a little bit bothered when it comes to your only flesh and blood in this world.
Yeah.
Is the one son, one child that you've created. Yeah, I mean, particularly from his perspective as an orphan,
Yes.
who knows the pain of abandonment all too well, to inflict it, and for me to be literally the only flesh and blood that he knows of, and to flick it off like an insect, it's incredible. But look, the timelines thing is really interesting, which is, as you say, one person is at the end point while the other person's at the beginning. What's really sad, and I think what makes this so stressful too, is that not only are you dealing with the effects of someone leaving you and commencing that bureaucratic stuff, but you're also just bewildered. Like, you're also trying to catch up, with the pace that life has now set, which is a new pace.
Yeah.
So there's kind of, in my feeling of it, and this always comes when somebody's, been cheating on you or something, there is this humiliation, like another world has been happening beyond your field of vision.
Yeah, and then of course you have your own, recriminations about yourself. Why didn't I see that? Why wasn't I attuned? And all that's real. I mean, other people can point the finger and say, gee, where are you in this? And I understand why they say that, but you're in the midst of life. You've just had a little boy. What?
Yeah. I think that this is a uniquely female burden, a uniquely female pain, a uniquely perhaps female experience, is this scenario that you find yourself in with a child left. Look, it happens the other way round.
It does.
It absolutely does, and I really don't want to alienate somebody by gendering it too much, but certainly that kind of new, like motherhood comes into this, of like, well, surely, like, what is my position in relation to my son now? Do I have to be a bigger mother or to feel those things? Is that a felt sort of thing, or?
Yeah, well, I think that's what I was trying to say before, that rightly or wrongly, I sort of lose myself because, I'm it.
Yeah.
And somehow you have to be perfect. Well, we know that I wasn't. Yeah, but all those things come into that.
Well, it's always been interesting to me that the mother of the child is abandoned and left to be a single mother, and then takes on the burden of being responsible as the sole parent for all the mistakes made that affect the child. So, like, you inherit everything. You inherit the financial burden and the logistical burden of being a sole parent, but you then become, like, I can't blame my father for all the things that went wrong because he wasn't here. You're to blame.
Yes. Yes, sure.
So you then...
And so my failures then have a more profound impact.
Yeah, they have a more profound impact. So you're absolutely... you are absolutely fucked over in this situation, because the child's the child's experience of parent is the one parent who's gonna, and what I always found is that, like, not only is the child abandoned, but the child is abandoned to a situation, in our case, where, I always struggle to articulate this. The child is abandoned to a situation in which the atmosphere and nature of its relationship to the parent it has been left with is now not what it was. So what I mean by that is that I'm left by my father, but I'm left to now experience a relationship with a single mother, which is very different from a relationship.
And you're having an experience of a very stressed mother,
Yes.
who is never comfortable with the situation, who is still looking for answers, who has looked for answers all her life and her part in all of it.
Yeah.
So, in effect, I'm a different person to what you would normally have had.
That's exactly what I'm saying. And so,
And in our case, over-involved.
Your parents come in and all that. We get,
because of that.
Yeah. And that's right. So, like, I'm not just abandoned, I'm now abandoned with a compromised mother.
Yes.
So because of the wound inflicted on you, I get kind of the worst version of you, or at least I get a very angry, very stressed version of you.
And that's what I meant about the sort of societal myths that surround all this. Well, he'll be resilient if you're resilient. It's all so easy.
It's also easy, yeah.
That's what I take objection to.
I object to it too, because it fundamentally doesn't sort of corral and treat the wound, the source of the wound that's been inflicted, which is this man. I mean, once upon a time, desertion of family was a capital offence. You would be hanged for it. Now, no, and I'm not saying that lightly, and I'm not saying it like, oh, we should go back to that. I don't mean that at all. What I'm saying, though, is the gravity of it. I mean, it was once upon a, and this is kind of my point with divorce, and like it's kind of lost all effect, or like it doesn't get a look in anymore. It's like, once upon a time, this was called desertion, and you were hanged. Now, obviously, in context with modern day, that's barbaric, etc. But it is interesting to just pause for a minute and think, so it was so grave and so, seen as such a wrong that you could be killed for it. And I always find it interesting to me that this is the one thing that's not, and please take this with a grain of salt, because I don't mean it actually, but it's not in the realm of criminal behaviour. Like, it's not domestic abuse. It's not any of this sort of stuff. It's just, oh, well, I just left my wife and kids to fuck them up forever. But hey, we all get to make choices. And I'm sort of thinking, well, that seems more significant an act and more significant an event than, what, like robbing a milk bar? Is that morally, are they the same?
And I think that's where that's where the family got lost. It was seen in that context. This is not just two people deciding that they're not very happy and they go off and find a new partner.
Your father turns it into an ancient defence.
Absolutely.
Ancient offence. Yeah. So he is out there going, this is desertion, he should be hung.
Yeah.
And he should be hanged.
Yes.
And you and I are going, well, it's not that either.
No, it's not like that. We've got to live with this. Let's just calm down.
Let's just chill out.
But no one really calms down.
Yeah,
and I acknowledge that.
And that's my point. Is like, I am not outraged. I don't think somebody who leaves their family should be corralled and hanged. That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. But I do just raise that point of like, you know, what passes for like a criminal offence and what passes for, like I say, domestic abuse or what have you, versus something like a person just walking out on a wife and child. I'm like, well, that is more significant in a lot of ways.
But see,
I don't know.
It was seen like that in context again because I mean the male was the breadwinner, the protector, and for him to walk away.
Well, he leaves
it was absolutely shocking
to starve, basically. Yeah. So it's absolutely devastating for the effect. So I guess but that's a good point. Is like you sort of downplay its significance because the effect seems to be reduced and society's changed. Yeah. But then I get to questioning whether the effect has been reduced.
That's right. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, okay. You and I weren't left on a prairie farm and starved. You know, because the crops failed. But emotionally,
it still has.
Well, it just resonates, and it goes on resonating, and that's why I brought up that article.
That was excellent, that article, and for it to be someone talking about that currently, it's fantastic.
Yeah, because the echoes and murmurs of it, they're far-reaching, and just to recap that point on like when my father leaves, I'm not just left by my father, I'm left with a really distressed, angry, upset mother, and because of the absence of my father, our dynamic becomes completely different forever. Sure. Like you are never really a mother to me. You know, and I become surrogate husband and sibling and all these things. Yes. You know, having a single mother is a unique experience that maybe people don't talk about enough. I don't know. No.
And again, only child, single mother.
Only child, single mother becomes really intense. Yeah. I do not think people who leave their families should be executed. I do not believe that at all. Okay. I said that very lightly. I was just thinking aloud. Yes. If you haven't already, join us on the Substack, thebarrypod.substack.com. We'll have a reading episode from our memoir-in-progress up on the Substack tomorrow. We will be slowly releasing those readings here and there, dripping them into the feed as we move along, but please do sign up if you want to get them as we go along in real time. And just another reminder, give us a follow on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. A rating and review would be great if you've got the time. Until next time, I think our next book is something... This House of Grief by Helen Garner.
Yeah, brilliant.
That's next week. Until then, bye.